Hello and welcome to the Fashion Shed. In today's tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to create this North Face Comme des Garçons collaboration. If you want to download all the project files for free, you can go over to my Patreon, click the free membership and simply download it there. Or you can go to my CLO Connect store where I've kind of created a different gold version without all the branding, and you can download it there. Okay, let's get into the tutorial. So this is the jacket. This is a square quilted I think it's reversible. And we've got a center front zip, patch pockets, and some snaps on the cuffs. Now, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a screenshot of this garment and I'm going to upload that into Illustrator. What we need to do is get the line tool and just draw around the edge. Now, this garment is laying flat and it's very boxy. So this means that we are going to be able to get the pattern from this really easily. So trace round the front panel. And then the sleeve. This seam needs to be straight. It can't be curved because we want to unfold that eventually. So we're kind of just guessing where the lines need to be. Now the underarm, if you've ever made a sleeve pattern, we kind of know what that shape needs to be. Okay, so once we've done that, move that to the side and delete the original screenshot. And let's turn that so that that seam is, well, that line is vertical. Okay, let's make that solid and save that off as an AI. Now what we can do, once we've saved this off, we can then upload that into CLO3D. Okay, now in CLO3D, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a male avatar. Okay, let's go to import and then import Adobe AI PDF and then select the file. All these are fine. And here we are. And look, it's tiny. So if you drag that up to the silhouette, as long as you make sure the proportions are exactly the same, this will be fine. So based on the silhouette, I can tell that the top of the shoulder point and the base is pretty good. The sleeve looks a little bit short. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to grab this and then make it a little bit longer. And then that is essentially the shape of our garments. Let's move this piece. Right, we want to make this vertical. So right click, rotate, and we want y-axis. And that makes that line straight vertical. Let's unfold this. Okay, so this isn't correct. This is too much of a point. So we need to smooth that top edge. If I was to do this again on the original one, I would have made sure it was 90 degrees. And then that would have been fine. But it's fine doing it this way as well. Let's move that up. This is looking like a pretty good sleeve shape for now. Let's make the sleeves a little bit longer because I pulled that top one down. Okay. Let's get rid of this shape as well. Because really, on the garment, that wouldn't be curved. That would be a straight line. Right, so copy and paste this one. Now this is going to be the back panel. So I'm going to unfold this, get rid of those points. And if you right click and put split and then uniform split 2, you get a perfect center back point. Now I'm going to move these up and create a perfect back neck shape. Perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to make sure that these sides match. Let's copy. So Control C, Control R will reflect that panel. So we've got a left and a right front. Okay, let's get the arrangement points. these little blue dots. So click a panel and then click on a blue dot, and then that'll put that back panel roughly where it needs to be. Same for the front panels. And then the sleeve. Just doing one sleeve for now because I'm going to copy and paste it once it's been developed a little bit further. Let's change this color because pink is driving me mad. So can't use orange because that's the stiffening tool. Let's do a grey. Okay, let's sew these seams. So using the sew tool, let's do the side seams. We need the shoulders. Let's do the free sew tool on the shoulders. You can see on the 3D, you've got those vertical, or those lines that are connecting them. If you ever get them crossed, you know that you've gone the wrong way in terms of the sewing. Now I'm going to sew just the top half of this sleeve. The construction of this garment is so that the body has an edge binding around the armhole, and then the sleeve has an edge binding around the armhole, and then they're kind of just sewn on top of one another. So the bottom half, I'm guessing for ventilation, the bottom half of the armhole is not actually sewn on. So what I want to do at this stage, I'm just going to put that in place. Once I sort all the binding out, I'll fix it. Okay, so the edge binding. Now on a real garment, what you would do is you would keep this pattern the same, and then the seamstress would simply just add an edge binding onto all of the edges. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all the outside lines, and then I'm going to have an offset of, let's say, 8mm, and then I'm going to cut and sew that so it looks like edge binding. So we only do the seams or the edges that require the edge binding. So right click and offset internal lines. I'm going to do 8mm. And while it's still yellow, cut and sew all of those. And that will have cut and sewed all of those. You can see on the 3D that it kind of looks good already. This is what we want. It's perfect. Oh, that sleeve has gone a little bit too short, so we're going to push that down a little bit. So I want it there. It needs about 2 centimeters. This looks better. The block is actually looking really good. Okay, I'm going to create a copy of this fabric and then create and highlight, just so I can distinguish all of the different pieces. Now you'll notice at the moment I haven't actually added any fabric properties or textures. The reason why I don't do that is because as soon as you start adding those in, it starts slowing your computer down. So really only do that at the last minute. Right, now for the quilting. So I know that the quilting is 2.5 squares across the front. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create just 3 random sized squares, and then if I put that to the center front and move this, okay, so that's what it should look like. And if I just test the length of this, so this is 88mm, so this, I would bet that on the garment the square quilting is 90 centimeters by 90 centimeters. So what we're going to do, we're going to click the vertical line and offset. We're going to do 90mm. Let's see how many you get there. So you get 3 lines there. So for the back, I don't want to start it at the bottom and I don't want to start it at the side seam. What I want is I'm going to create a center back seam. And this means that the quilting will be equal both sides. So if you right click, offset internal lines, so it's only one side at the moment, so put both sides, then click OK. And that's perfect. Right, we don't want to touch that side yet. Okay, now for the horizontal lines. Now, I could do this, where you add it here, but that's actually not correct based on the reference image. It actually starts from the top. But because that line is curved, I can't actually do an offset because it would just curve all the way down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a line, get roughly 90 millimeters. That'll do. And then create our first horizontal line here. We can get rid of that line. And then offset internal lines, make sure it's going the other direction. And that's it. And you can see that the bottom line is actually very similar to the reference image now. Right, let's match up these sides at the base. And what I can do is I can create this line across. And then just like the back, I can do offset. And then reverse it again. And there we are. There's all the front quilting. Perfect. I'm actually going to grab the reference image and put it here for the pockets. Okay, so for the pockets, having quilting and the grid on there is actually very, very handy. So I can count how many squares across it is. So first for the vertical line and the horizontal, and then this is wrong. No, hang on. So, oh, it needs to be 2 by 2, and I've done it 3 by 2.5. Okay, so the fact that the grid's there, and I completely ignored them, and need to delete this. Okay, so starting roughly here, down here, and then the diagonal line is 1 square across. Okay, let's curve these edges. Okay, once that is done, still that edge. So this is the edge of the binding, not the internal panel. Let's move that over a little bit. I want to get this absolutely perfect. Perfect. So right click that panel, and I'm going to create an additional layer over, and I'm going to cut these seams and then delete everything else. The reason why I do it like that is so that that panel is already on top, so you don't have to faff around trying to get in the 3D window that panel to lay over the top of it. So the binding is 8 millimeters. Okay, so offset 8 millimeters, 1, and there we go, that's our edge binding. So we need to cut and paste that. Now, looking at this reference image, it looks like the binding is kind of sewn and the edge is a bit flappy. Like it looks like the edge of the binding isn't actually sewn to the garment. So what I need to do is, for the line on the garment, I need to create an internal line here. That's great. So now I've got those internal lines. I need to move the binding to one side. Let's change that material so we know it's binding. Let's get the sew tool. I'm going to sew the outside edge of the internal panel to this. And there we go. Okay, I need to do, there's a stitch line here, so I'm going to just do an 8mm line here. So eventually when it comes to the stitching, I can add that in. Okay, that's looking good. Just realized on the 3D window, I couldn't see any grids. Now for the sleeve. Again, we need to do exactly the same as before with the internal quilting lines. 90mm. Start with the cuff. And then once we've done that, we need to create a line in the middle. Doesn't really matter where, but just the highest point. And that's your vertical quilt line. And then you offset, do both sides. We don't need as many that time. We only need one each side. And that's your sleeves. Easy. Okay, that is looking good. All right, I'm going to delete that. I'm going to copy and paste the front panel. So grab everything from the front and then Control C, Control R. We just need to sew all of these lines together. So the shoulder and the side seam. Don't forget to also do the binding. Oh God, hang on. I've deleted that. I deleted that bit of binding for some reason. Right, rather than just going back, I'm just going to copy and paste this across. So Control R, Control C, Control R, and then that puts it in place. Now I need to sew this back on. And I also need to sew the edge of the bindings. Like that. And when I simulate that, that'll be fine. Oh, make sure you do this one as well, or else that'll just be flapping everywhere. Okay, time to simulate that. And oh, I just realized that I didn't sew the binding to the edge of the pockets. Okay, let's go back. Okay, let's add the center front zip now. So if you go to the edge bindings at the center front, click the zip tool and then go on the left hand side and then press enter, and then make sure that you're using the same points down to this, and then this creates a zip for you. Now if I simulate that, that's going to pull the zips together, which looks great, but we still need to change a few of the settings. Okay, let's look at the reference image, a zoomed in one. So this looks like a plastic Vislon teeth with a silver metal puller. So if we go down to plastic 2, no, plastic 1, I think. There we are. And then this would be a size 5. Let's simulate that. Okay, so that's made everything bigger, but the tape is too wide at the minute, so let's move that down. So we want the teeth to stay the same, but the tape that's visible on the side needs to be lower. Okay, click the zip puller, and then we can go over to the options. I think this one looks good. It's too small at the minute, so because that's a size 3. We need it a size 5. That's looking good. And then the bottom is an open end zip, so that's exactly what we want. We can sort out the colors and everything later. Oh, do you know what? I've just realized there should be binding on the shoulder seams. I didn't do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the shoulder line. Offset, cut and sew, change the material, and that's good. And then also, does it have a side seam as well? Can't tell because the garment's laying flat. Let's see. Yeah, it does. It does. Now I should have done this at the same stage as the everything else, but you live and learn. Perfect. Let's change the material so they're highlighted. That's it. All right, let's move this down because eventually when I come to quilt everything, we don't want them all sitting next to one another. We want two materials split or separate. Let's move that down as well. Okay, this is looking good. So at the moment, the binding doesn't have any thickness. Well, let's change the particle distance down to 10 actually. And then for the binding, I'm going to change it down to 5. So everything's a little bit smoother. Now, this panel is thin as anything. We want that to be thicker. So select all the binding and add thickness 2. It looks quite realistic, but when you increase the thickness of something, it keeps the sewing 3D, and it always looks a bit odd. So if you select that and then delete the 3D map of the sewing tool, it creates a much smoother edge. This is strange. It shouldn't be doing this. What I'm going to do, first of all, yeah, so select the sewing lines here, then increase the fold strength to 100 because the angle is 180, so that's straight. That's it. So that's made that a bit straighter and less flappy at the front. Now this pocket, I need to increase the thickness of this pocket. Okay, so the binding top stitch. Let's go over to the stitch tool. I'm going to do free stitch, and I'm going to put that on absolutely everything. Okay, so that's everything. So, okay, let's attach the sleeve. So, like I said at the first bit of the video, the sleeve doesn't attach edge to edge for the binding. The sleeve actually is sewn over the top, so it looks like a single piece of binding is there. So rather than this edge being sewn, it needs to be the top edge of the sleeve panel, not the binding. So now this needs to be sewn to this panel, not the binding. At the top point there. I'm sure this is going to create some confusion when I press simulate. Okay, I've got to make sure that, because they're the shoulder binding as well, so make sure that that's sewn as well. If you forget that, everything will start going crazy on you. Okay, so again, it's the body panel, not the edge binding. Okay, so let's select this. I'm going to give it a little bit of a hand and move it up. So look, it needs to go there. Let's simulate that. Ooh, that's looking good. Now this bit, these are mashing into one another. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select those panels. Oh, I didn't select one of those pieces. Yeah, normally it's like fighting. It's kind of it's corrected where it's sewn, but then on the armpit, it thinks that it needs to be underneath, so it's yanking it in. So I think what I need to do is pull it here for a little bit. Come on, come on. Right, and then stop your simulation for a second. Okay. Oh my god. Right. Oh, it's like you're fighting with something. Okay, let's turn off the layer so it's all on the same layer now. I think let's do this. Okay, that looks good. Let's just make sure nothing is clashing. Right, I think that's exactly how I wanted it to look. Okay, I actually need to, I think now I'm gonna copy and paste the sleeve over. So it's Control C and then Control R, and then it'll create a copy for you, but then put it on the other side. Now, same again. Let's stitch this line to the body. Okay, I think this time, rather than doing the under binding as the layer, I'm going to do the top one. It still has the same conflict where it just wants to be inside of it. Okay. I've put the internal binding of the armhole down to 1, so it doesn't conflict with it. So really all you can see is the outside one. Okay, time for the padding now. The original padding method that I normally do with the padding fill tool just didn't work. No matter how small of a setting I put, so if I put like 0 weight, 10 grams, 20 grams, it just didn't work. It just created this overly puffy jacket, and that's not actually how the original garment looks. It's very subtle. So I got rid of all of that, and this is the correct method that I created. So let's get all of those panels back to normal. For some reason this has sunken in, so let's re-simulate that. Okay, so what I'm going to do, so I'm going to copy and paste all of these. So let's do layer clone under. So that's going to create an internal line, and what it also does, it copies all of the quilting lines. So what that'll do is when I simulate that, it'll create some sort of quilting effect. So it's created a very subtle quilting effect. Now, this hem doesn't look correct because it's kind of like pulled it in, which we don't want. So we're going to have to play around with this a little bit, because as it stands, this is not good enough. Just going to strengthen these pockets so they're less flappy. I think my favorite word today is flappy. Okay, I'm going to strengthen the internal of this jacket so it gives it that boxy feel, but that has kind of ruined the quilting effect. So it's resolved the volume issue, but it's kind of made the quilting look bad. Let's just sort out these underarms. Just pushing it out. Now the padding looks okay. There needs to be a little bit more volume. We still need to add the wrinkle effect. We still need to add the stitch line. But as it stands, I am very happy with this. Okay, I'm going to change the pose on the avatar so that the sleeves are down by the side. Okay, time to render. So I'm going to start the rendering process now, just so I can see how that quilting effect looks, and then I can then adjust that accordingly, because I'm going to start adding the wrinkling onto it. So if you go up to the render window, open up the properties, and I'm going to change the image size. Let's render that quickly. Okay, as always, when you first do this, it will look disgusting and not lifelike at all. So let's change the background color just to something earthy. Let's change all of the material to something earthy as well. That's all fine. Okay, lighting effects, let's put vivid, lock the camera, and we don't need to worry about the ground shadow. Let's render that. Oh, it's instantly better. Right, still not there though. Okay, let's sort out this puckering. So we can almost cheat some of the padding effects. So if we go up to the puckering tool, I'm just going to do a few test lines. But let's select all of those lines. We want to select all the lines and then click both sides. Okay, let's go up to this tool. And let's try nylon. I'm going to change the width to 30. And then the density to 151. Let's move that down. 200. Is that okay? Let's have a look. Change that to 40. No, 40 is too much. Okay. Now, if I click this arrow here, I can change the intensity. Let's move that to 60. I think that might be a bit too much, but let's see. Okay, I want to add puckering all around the edge as well, because the binding would create puckering as well, not just the internal seams. Right, I think at this point, let's add puckering to all of the lines. Let's see how that looks over in the render. I'm guessing it's going to be too much. Yes. That is incredibly intense. So let's knock that down a little bit. Let's change the intensity down to 20. Still a bit too much. Right, let's try a cotton effect. Let's make the intensity 20. The width, let's change that to 15. And the density, over 100. Should we try 200? 69 for the density. Okay, let's render that, see what that looks like. Still not right. I think the cotton looks better than the nylon. Still, it's not quite right. I think we need to sort out this padding once and for all. Okay, select everything and freeze it. Now we're going to unfreeze the external lines or the external panels. And I'm going to change the shrinkage to 105. 105. Oh, I think I got it. After all that time, I finally got it. Okay. So the solution was to freeze the internal, change the shrinkage on the outside to 100, 105, 110, and then increase the pressure to 10. Let's change the puckering effect. So intensity 10, opacity 100. Let's do the intensity to 20. Oh, that's looking really good. Finally. Okay, so the body looks good. I think the sleeves still need a little bit of work, but let's do the top stitch, because that will define the lines in between the actual quilting. So on every single one of these lines, I am going to put a top stitch. And what I want to do, go down to the 3D tool. Let's do 3 for the thickness. That's looking nice. Thickness 10. That's a bit too much. Okay, let's go back down. Let's go to 5 for the thickness. And let's just add the stitch lines to the sleeves. And then all the other panels. Okay, let's add the final colors. So at the moment, I've just been using some earthy tones. If you go up to the production and then go to colorways, what I'm going to do is select all the zips and make that black. And actually, I just need the teeth to be matte. Okay. Let's just see how that looks. Right, let's change the color, the main color of the main fabric. So click the color at the top, sandy color. Click the color tool, and I'm going to do the pipette. Let's get this khaki green. Let's select the teeth. They need to be glossy because they're plastic. That's fine. And then we need to change the puller and the slider. Change that to metal and matte silver, I think we'll do. Actually, just silver will be good for that. So that's quite a bright silver. Okay, we need to add the trims in a second. So let's add these snaps that are on here. So if we go up to the trim object browser and create a new trim, if I drop down this little option, I can get this metal snap. So let's just plonk one. Where are they? So there's 2. Well, there might be 3, but we can only see 2 at the front. Okay, so select the trim, put one there, and one there. I don't want to put it on the stitch line. So one there, and one there. Okay, so I want to change this property to the same as the zip puller. It doesn't give me an option for the silver. Okay, let's just leave that as is. Right, so the branding, this is a tricky one. So for copyright reasons, I don't suggest obviously using any of the branding, but for this example, I'm going to show you how you can get a North Face logo and put them on here. So obviously, if you're doing your own version of this, put your own logo on. But if you just Google North Face logo PNG, you come to a website a little bit like this. It doesn't have to be this website. There's tons of websites out there that do it. Download that. And if you go to your 2D window, and we're going to import. I'm going to import that logo. So this is the pocket I want it on. It's huge at the moment. What we're going to do, we're going to scale it down. Now, obviously, this is a North Face Comme des Garçons collaboration, but I don't have the artwork file for the Comme des Garçons logo. So just putting this on will show you exactly how to do it. So that's the position I want it. We want to put it on the front. I'm going to change the offset to 0.5. And then click on it. Now I'm going to desaturate it and then put it to the black, the same black as the binding. And we're going to make it a silk satin effect. So that'll give it a tiny bit of gloss. Now that is looking really close. I'm really liking that. Okay, so I think the binding is a little bit too light. Doesn't look dark enough. So what I'm going to do, click on the binding materials and change the reflection down to a 2. Because this would be, you know, maybe a herringbone cotton, so the reflection wouldn't be as high. So, and I'm also going to knock down the black. Let's do that. Yeah, I think that looks much nicer. Okay. What next? So I'm going to put the... Okay, so the stitching doesn't look very realistic. What I want to do is actually make the stitching have a bit of a sheen on it. So it looks like that's nice. That looks a lot more realistic rather than having a matte. I think that looks really good. It's nice. I'm liking the lighting is good. Material, the padding looks really good. Okay, let's add the North Face logo to the back neck. So let's copy that one. You can't use the same one because I'm going to make this white. So let's put that in place. Okay, so now that's in. We want to make sure that it is on. Do you know what? Let's unfreeze this panel because I can't actually see, and unstrengthen it as well. So I can't see the logo on there yet. So let's change this to white. There it is. Let's move that into the middle and down a little bit. And that's looking really good. Okay, let's create the final render. That's amazing. Right, let's pop these over to Photoshop because although the renders are good, they're not amazing yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a color and put it behind. If you click Control-Shift-A, it brings this box up. And what you can do is you can increase everything. So increase the exposure, increase the contrast, knock back the black, and just play around. Obviously, when you do your garment, it'll require different settings. So there's no one set rule. It's just whatever makes it look good enough. So I whack the texture up, and then I also add a tiny bit of grain, just so it looks like a real photograph. If everything's so smooth, it's not very realistic. Amazing. Okay, but I want to do this on the back image as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the setting, click all of that, and then just create that as a random number. You're only going to use this once, so just for this file. So click OK, that's good. And then we can save that off as an image. I'm going to export this as, because I want it as a JPEG. Okay, JPEG, quality full, and then yeah, just save that. Then we can get rid of that, and then let's import the back view. There we are. And see how, like, the difference between the two after this is incredible. You never really notice that you need it until you do it. There we are. So that is, let's export that. And that is how I created the North Face Comme des Garçons quilted jacket. If you enjoyed that video, if you got all the way to the end, well done, because that was a long video. If you want these files, like I said, you can go over to my Patreon page, where if you click free member, you can download all these files for free. Those are the ones with the North Face branding. If you want a non-branded version and a full outfit, you can go over to my CLO Connect store, where I have all of the product files for free. Just download that. So thank you very much. Cheers. See you again soon. Bye.